Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is your host, JC Soto with Online Media 360. Today we have TEDx speaker, coach, and author, Michelle Mras. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Thank you for having me.
Michelle, I know you're a public speaking coach. What is it that you do for your students that help them? Are you working with pros that are already established and then be a better speaker? Or are you working with rookies or people that want to get into the business?
A little of both. It depends on their level of enthusiasm and willingness to give of themselves. Because I believe everyone is a public speaker, but they have to realize who they truly are. So it depends on where they are in that spectrum. Mostly I work with people who already know they want to be on a stage. But I have worked with very many people who have never been on a stage and got them prepared for a TED Talk and they got picked up. So we're always talking, we're always communicating. What's the block that makes people be fearful when they go from speaking one-on-one to standing on stage and talking to other people? What is it that is going through their heads? Well, I believe that there is a delusion that when you're speaking one-on-one, they're not that judgmental. Well, actually, they're doing the same thing the whole crowd would be doing.
It's probably worse, huh?
Yeah, probably worse because there's so many. Yeah. And I think when you can't see the other person's eyes, you start wondering, well, if I can't see their eyes, then I don't know what to say next. And see, that's the whole thing about public speaking is you speak to the crowd. You speak to one-on-one. You find the eyes in that crowd that make you feel whatever you need to feel in order to stay up there. And so really, you're only talking one-to-one, even though it's one-to-many.
That's right. Now, I heard before, and we probably all of us heard that public speaking is number one fear. And it says Americans, I don't know if that's the case, but is that in your experience? Have you seen that also? That is even more powerful fear than dying? Is that correct?
Yes, I've been around the world. Most people I've spoken in many, many countries. And yes, people are terrified of getting on stage. They'll sing on stage. They'll walk across stage, get an award and say thank you. But if you say stop and say something, they lock up. And it's so funny to me because speaking is what we do as humans. I mean, we do it constantly. And just because you're on a platform, it doesn't mean anything's different. So in my mind, public speaking is like breathing. We all do it. And so that's when I work with my clients. That's really what I'm helping them learn is you're doing it already. You're just moving where you're standing from. That's all.
Yeah. So when they lock up like that, is that because they have something memorized and you take them out of their routine that already have planned in their heads?
No, they lock up because they're thinking too much about themselves.
Oh, I see.
And that's really where it comes into public speaking. It's never about the person on stage. It's always about the message you're giving out. And when people lock up, it's because they're doing, okay, what's someone thinking about me? Oh, I forgot that third word in the second sentence. Stop. Just stop. What are you there to give? And who do you need to speak to? Do it. Go again.
Yeah. And you've seen some anxiety that will start to build up in some of your students, right? When they go from theory and listening you talk, and then they have to do their time on stage. Have you seen that kind of build up, just going from 0 to 60 in like 2 seconds?
I've seen that happen a lot. And what's funny is I've seen people who completely lock up on stage, and then you say, what do you really want to talk about? Well, I really want to say, and they start talking like they're talking to their best friend. That's what you're supposed to say. And then they do it again. They do, wow, that came out of me? Yes, because that's your heart speaking. That's really what you want to say. The other thing that you wrote down and memorized is what you think people want you to say. There's a difference. It's what really needs to be said to them and what you have contemplated to be said. Get out of your head. Get in your heart and get it out of your mouth. People are needing to hear your story, your whatever you have. And you've got to believe that.
And how important is to have a story to connect with the audience?
Story is huge. And that's really the basis of most of my coaching. If you think back to any civilization on this planet, even back to cavemen. Okay, they're telling stories by drawing on the walls, right? The Egyptians drew on their walls. Everything is a story. People would sit around campfires. That's how life was transferred from generation to generation. How we do things. It's story. Our human brains are made to capture stories, to feel, touch, imagine, smell, whatever it is. That's how we incorporate it into our own lives. And when you tell stories, people are able to put themselves into the story, and then they remember it even stronger. And that's the huge thing about storytelling and messaging and teaching people how to get on stage and present themselves. And get out of their head, get into their heart.
Yeah, and people remember stories instead of facts, right?
Oh, heck
easier
yeah.
to remember stories.
Well,
So
some people need facts within the story. Story is always the base.
depending on the context, you can combine the facts and its stats with story, make it more compelling and easier to remember, right?
Yes, actually, if you watch many TED Talks or TEDx's, it's usually a story, and then they insert some facts into the story so that it backs the story. And by doing that, those are the ones that tend to be more popular because people can remember them. They feel them, and then they have a visual on them too. A little bit of everything.
Yeah, a little bit of everything. And then you have people that only rely on PowerPoints. I think that there are people that, I think a little bit is sometimes necessary, but people just rely on that so much that they don't connect with the audience, right?
Oh, that's huge. Yes. I mean, and with me, with PowerPoint, if the only reason I can ever tell a client to go ahead, use PowerPoint is to keep them on time. If they're very, very distracted and get off on, tangents all the time, then definitely use a PowerPoint, not for you to read it, but to keep you on point. And I don't believe in more than 3 bullet points. And I'm talking big bullet points. 1 word, 3 bullet points, just to keep you on target. And the other reason for a PowerPoint is people learn at different rates, at different levels. Some people need to see, some need to have to hear it. Some need to do both. Some need to actually hold a piece of paper. And so if you're training, I would say address all 3. Do something so the kinetic, the listeners, and the visuals all have something. But if you're speaking, you've got to be able to connect that way too. And that's why when I speak, I tend to have an engagement of some sort, either have them do their own visualization or handout or something so the tangible people can hold it. So think about your audience. Everyone learns in different ways. So if you sit there and you do Bueller, point A, Bueller, point B, you're going to put half the room to sleep. No one wants to do that. Everyone in the room says, I can read. Why are you reading it to me? I'm not stupid.
All of us grew up watching TV, so we like to see things. We like to play with toys when we're kids, so we like to touch things. And all of us like to hear music and like to hear things. So that's going to be a combination of things that go into that presentation, right?
Yes, you must always use a combo. And I believe in the power of 3. So if you're going to give an example, you give 3. Short ones, but 3. Because the human brain needs 3 examples to lock it. If that first one didn't work, okay, maybe the second one will work. Then the third one, okay, now I've got it. And it's really connecting. Right. And that's the other thing with talking and coaching people with speaking and getting on stages and connecting with an audience. You can't be monotone. The human brain not only is geared for story, it's also geared for music. When you're a baby, when you have a baby in the house, what do? You don't talk directly to the baby. You do, hello, Lynn. Hello, baby. And then you sing because that's what human babies do. And just because you're a baby and you grow up doesn't mean you stop relating to music. We still are geared to music. You've got to remember your voice has to be up and down, a little variety.
A lot of the stuff that we remember are songs from years back. So,
do you remember, what is it, Schoolhouse Rock?
Yeah. So, So things like that.
In order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility. I know every song. I was an engineering student for, 4 years of my college. I memorized a lot of my formulas by putting them into song.
Exactly. And that makes it easier. And not only easier, it makes it a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. Because like you said, everybody learns in a different way. And having a song that you can remember, and like you right now, you remember that maybe for 30, 40 years later after it was useful back then. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you and I, we talk with our hands or we move on. What do we do with our bodies when you're on stage?
When you're on stage, you have to control your body a bit more.
Yeah.
So if you're on a big stage, I mean, I'm 5 foot nothing. So when I'm on stage, I use broader hand gestures because I disappear on a stage. If you ever see me on stage, I tend to be wearing bright colors, or I don't wear a dark suit because I'll disappear. I'll be a floating head. And so I use big gestures because big and loud. I mean, you've got to project so people will pay attention to you. Now, depending on your talk, and I'm very, it's hard to explain this on a podcast, but you have to watch your hands. You cannot talk constantly using your hands, because where your hands go, that's where your audience's minds and eyes go.
Follow.
So when you're moving your hand, you're gesturing for a reason. So point 1, point 2, point 3, you move your entire body for it, actually. So depending on what your talk is and why you're talking and why you're gesturing, that is how you move your hands. But the audience on the other end, the audience knows when you're faking the hand gesture. I was walking down the street when I saw, and you put your hand up above your eyebrows. No one does that, you know? Now, if you said I was calling, well, the old phone is not like this anymore. You can't use your finger, your pinky and your thumb, because now it's cell phones, right? You've got to remember things like that, because your brain, the brains of your audience actually thinks that. Dude, what are they holding? That's not a phone, right?
That's right. That's right. And, majority of audience don't know what this means anymore.
Yeah.
That's passé. This is years ago. So
now, if you say in 1970, I called my friend, there's difference. You say, yesterday I called my friend, people do, what is in their hand, hang loose,
You're right. Now, let's talk about humor. Is humor something that should be considered to be included in the talk?
Yes. And you don't have to be humorous. Now, you have to be careful about that, because most people do, I have to put humor in, so I'm going to put in a joke. If you don't tell jokes well, don't. Just don't. But the power of pausing is huge. You can say a statement and pause and make a face. Like, I was walking down the street and I saw a bird. It wasn't a normal bird. It was a big bird. I said nothing funny, but people smiled because they're like, what kind of big bird did you see, right? Because I paused and let their imagination go. And so when we say humor, it could be that subtle, letting the audience's imagination catch up with whatever you're talking about.
Now, when somebody comes to you and they want to improve their public speaking and help maybe all these fears, how can you help them get past that?
Well, that's an exercise in itself. I do a talk basically called Amplify Your Magnetism. And I walk you through your body. And a lot of the tension that happens with speakers is we get so locked up in our head, and then we're so worried about our body. And what I do is I get you more focused on your body movement, the energy in your body, and then ask you to project in either an animal that's courageous or strong in your mind, or a song that empowers you. I mean, that's an easy one to explain. If you're ever in a bad mood, you're coming home from work, you're in a bad mood, you're in traffic, you put on the music that you choose, your mood changes to the music. So I always say, if you need something on stage to amp you or change your mood, put a song in your head. And then in my case, a lot of times, if you've ever seen me walk on stage, I walk on stage like I'm a panther of some sort, and I walk kind of with a lot of power, but I'm also I've got wiggle because I'm singing. I have a song in my head. I'm usually singing, I'm every woman, it's all in me, and I am walking on the stage. And that's what gets me in the mood of, I am not afraid of anything out here.
That's powerful. That's a really, if you think about it, we do that all the time, but we do it in the opposite direction. We sometimes imagine something that makes us even more fearful instead of the good image that's going to make them feel powerful.
Well, I've had people, they come in and you can see the way they're walking on stage. Dun, 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 dun. I'm like, no, you're not going to get, the force is not going to crush your head.
Yeah.
Or Jaws theme,
Yeah. So you come in like a little mouse looking around all fearful, and that doesn't help.
Yeah, I say, channel your inner animal, your inner predator, not a squirrel that does, I'm afraid, Come up saying, I own this stage. I own every step I walk on, and I'm powerful. And you will be.
You'll feel it. You will feel it. And do they have any misconceptions when they come and say, I want to hire you to help me with my public speaking? Do they have something that already have in their head, some kind of beliefs about what a public speaking coach will bring to them?
The funniest thing I always hear is, are you a vocal coach? No, I'm not a vocal coach. I do not teach you how to control your voice. That's actually something you can do. You can hire someone for that. But I believe in singing. But yes, a lot of people think, well, then I don't have a public speaking voice. Well, what exactly is a public speaking voice? Thank you for calling Omaha Federal Credit Union. No, you don't have to do that. People want to talk to a real human. Be you.
Exactly.
Be authentically you. The only thing I do with vocals when people come to me and say, I've got this apprehension, I have this and this. Well, do you watch yourself talk? Have you ever recorded yourself? Yes. What do you not like about it? Well, sometimes I'm too fast. Well, then slow down. Well, then sometimes I speed up really fast and then I miss my point. Then slow down. I mean, if you know where your problem lies, address it and then do it again. The other thing about public speaking is people record themselves and then never watch or never listen. You must watch and listen to yourself so that you can hear your cadence of your voice. So you can say, you know what? Maybe I'm talking too high, and so maybe I should lower my voice. So you lower your voice. It's all a choice.
Feedback. So you know what needs to be improved.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you have somebody that has this belief that she's going to probably make me a big star and make me this big public speaker like her, do you say, no, you have to work on your own voice, your own skills, and you got to be you?
Yes.
You're not going to be another Michelle, right?
We do not want another Michelle in the world. We don't have enough room for another Michelle in this world. Well, the thing is everyone, what I tell my clients is someone is waiting to hear your voice, not your voice channeled through a Michelle or, anyone else. We're not looking for another Les Brown. They're looking for you, because if they weren't looking for you, they would already have their answer and they wouldn't be in the room with you, which means they still need to hear someone. You may be that someone. Be that someone. Step into your light. Be you. You experience the things you've experienced because someone needs help through the same thing and they haven't figured it out. And it's your particular voice in your particular situation that will click.
That's right.
It's a calling.
And can you give me an example of someone that started like a little mouse, was afraid to speak, and when you were done with them, they're just like they were the tiger that they're supposed to be, or the tigress that they're supposed to be?
Which is funny is there's a lot. There's a lot. I can't even pick up one, because I remember one, he came up to me and he asked me, it was way back when I was still I was as one of the senior people in Toastmasters in the District 26 here in Colorado, the 3-state region. He's like, can you help me? I want to compete at a Toastmaster conference. And I said, okay, in a contest, okay. And he was so shy. And we used to meet at coffee shops. He did that on purpose because that way I couldn't corner him.
Oh.
And so we had to find another room. And one day he said, no, just talk from your heart. What do you really want to say? And he went from terrified, just trying to force himself onto a stage, to he's constantly, he even skipped the competitions. He's out speaking and doing his thing. He was trying to fit a mold of what he thought a speaker would be. The thing is if you're a musician, bring in your music. If you're a techie, bring in your tech. Whatever it is that you are, the way you speak through, then do it. This guy, he plays a saxophone. He's amazing. Yeah, and it breaks his fear.
Yeah,
because he'll play the sax, and then he can just keep going.
Yeah.
It opens up this new dimension of him, and his connection with the audience is so pure. I love that.
When you have somebody like that, it's sometimes a big challenge to get them to see what they can provide in the story that they bring. Every story every talk has a structure, right? When you prepare your talk there, and I'm going to ask you, let's start with that. When you prepare a talk, how do you prepare a talk? what are the elements or the maybe the sequence that you
for myself?
follow? Yeah.
Well, with my clients too, depending on what they want to talk about, I say, why do you want to talk about it? So the first thing is find your why. Why do you find it so important? What's the key in there? And then what I ask them to do is, I want you to record yourself randomly talking to your child or your best friend or someone like that. Just talk. And then I want you to listen to it. What out of that talk did you find the most important that you really wanted out? Now I want you to make an outline out of that. And then from that outline, make sure you only have 3 points, main points. Now, if you have more than 3 points, that means you have another speech. So break it down smaller.
Okay.
And that's the basic of how we do it. Speak why. Why do you need this out? Why is it so important? That's the beginning. What are you giving to them?
How did you get started public speaking and spreading your message?
I was an auctioneer. I was a benefit auctioneer. And I was doing like silent auctions and things like that for auctioneers in a nonprofit world. And one day, my boss, he handed me the microphone and he said, Michelle, close the silent auction. And he gave me that mic and I said, the silent auction will be closing in 5 minutes. Silent auction will be closing in 5 minutes. And I went, I really like the mic. And then I joined Toastmasters, which is a international organization that helps you with public speaking. I had no fear of large crowds. I had fears of one-on-one, one-on-four. And so I went to learn that. And as I started telling my story there, that's where it really kicked in. And then somewhere in there, I ended up being running political campaigns, writing campaign speeches. And then I got hit in the head. I have a traumatic brain injury. So that's really what got me in there, the traumatic brain injury, because I lost 4 areas of my brain. And when I did so, I lost many years of my life, including the auctioneering world, the political world, and I had to reinvent myself. Someone asked me to be on a TED Talk at TEDx, and I didn't even know what it was. I applied. I got in. Apparently, I did some national public radio talks on Moth Hour story projects, and I didn't remember I did, but they liked me, and they asked me to do a TED Talk, and I did. And after that, I wrote a book, and I haven't stopped. I found my calling by getting knocked in the head.
Speaking of your calling, how did you get started coaching other people to do better in public speaking?
Well, the spark is actually my business partner. His name is Gary Barnes. He's been on your show before.
Yes.
He's my spark. I went to the Breakthrough Business Boot Camp, and I was just there. I was just going to go see what he was. I was told I was a female version of him, and I wanted to know what a male version of me looked like. So I went to his boot camp, and he said, hey, Michelle, go on stage and tell your story. And I said, I have a lot of stories. He said, well, tell whatever you want to tell. And I went up there and told a story, and I didn't realize what a big deal it was. He put me on his international stage. And it's not a big deal for me because I like to talk to crowds. I've been around the world already, so it's not a big deal. And then afterwards, what got me speaking and training people, got me training speakers, is at the end of his boot camp, he has the speak out where people go up on stage and he gives evaluations. He asked me to be one of the evaluators. And I said, why would you want me to evaluate? You don't even know me. And he said, I know you. Okay. So people were going on stage and I was evaluating. And it was crazy because he would evaluate and then he'd let me evaluate. So he would already cover everything. And then I had to find more. And I'm really good at it. And he's like, at the end of the boot camp, he says, if anyone needs a speaker coach, Michelle will help you. And I remember being in the audience doing, what? I'm not a speaker coach. I don't do that. And he's, oh yeah, you do. And that's how it happened. I switched because I never considered what I do as a gift of teaching. I was just doing it. It was so natural. I would go to TED Talks and I was the coach at Colorado Springs TEDx because it's what I like to do. It's like breathing to me. I don't see it as a talent. And that's the magic of everything. The thing you do so naturally that you don't even think is a talent is what you should be doing. And that's what Gary helped me realize. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't even think about, evaluating speeches. I can craft a speech. I can make a speech that's 3 hours long into a 3-minute speech, and it would be just as impactful. And he says, you don't see that as a gift? I do. No, it's just what I do. He goes, Michelle, people can't do that. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll help you. That's how it happened.
Now, tell me something you learned years ago, that still affects how you do business today, how you live your life. Any lesson that you learned back then that you still apply today?
Wow. There's many. I wrote an entire book on it. It's called Eat, Drink, and Be Merry. It's lessons I learned from a very powerful woman in my life. She was my math teacher, my 9th grade math teacher. And she's also now my mother-in-law. And I wrote the entire book about her and lessons I learned from her. And there's 3 things I really learned that I use for everything. The first thing is eat dessert first. You've got to enjoy the little things in life, because one day, the little things really will be the big things. I learned that after my brain injury, that the things I took for granted were the most important things in my world. The other thing is you have to have a plan. I don't care if you don't know the direction on how you can go, just know your end goal, and the universe will help you get to it. Because you accept things in your life that are an alignment to whatever you want, and you will guide to it. So don't panic about how, because just like a GPS, you can have multiple routes to the same destination. That came into a big play with my life just in the past 5 years with the brain injury, and then finding out I had breast cancer. My path was not straight, and it was taking turns faster than I could even see them, right? So take life not so serious, and not panic when things don't come out the way you think they should be. And then the last is the differences between a rut and a grave are the dimensions. If you're living in a rut doing exactly the same thing every day, you're building your own grave. Step out of it. Because if you want something different in this world to happen for you, you must do something different. As Einstein said, doing the same thing over and over again is the definition of insanity. And so many of us say, oh, I want this, but keep doing the same thing. You must do something different.
You're right about that. Now, if someone wants to become a better public speaker, can you give us 3 tips, maybe 5 tips on how to get that done?
Call me.
We'll have your number at the end.
I do a breakthrough speaker mastery boot camp with my now partner, Gary Barnes, and we do a very intensive 2-day boot camp. The other thing is, once you do that boot camp, if you need more, you can call me, and then we can do one-on-one coaching. If you're not in Colorado, we can meet on a Zoom call. But 3 tips for people who want to be public speakers. You all are public speakers. Every time you talk to anyone in a grocery store, you are. So get that out of your brain. You are. Do you want to be a professional speaker? There's a difference. Then you need to be paid. Now, the thing is you can be paid in multiple ways. It doesn't have to be money. It can be a letter of recommendation. It can be marketing trades. It could be anything like that. Then the third thing is get out of your own way. That's my number 1. Get out of your way. If you have a message and you really want to do it, then do it. If you want to craft it into a stronger message so you can articulate it with under 3 minutes or expand it to a 3-day boot camp, then do it. If you need help, then reach for people who've already done it. I've already done it.
That's right.
And then get on bigger stages. Get into a community. See, our boot camp is more than just a boot camp. It is a community of people who also are speakers, who will connect you. So you become part of a family.
Speaking of that boot camp, what's the website for that boot camp?
Yeah, it's actually Breakthrough Speaker Boot Camp. All one word.
Pretty
Breakthrough
easy.
Speaker Boot Camp.
Breakthrough Speaker Boot Camp.
Mm-hmm.
What's your website?
It's my name, MichelleMras.com, MichelleMras.com.
And now let's talk about your book, the book that you just took from being a printed version into an audiobook. Let's talk a little bit about that. That's interesting to me. And it's a great book. So can you tell us a little more about Michelle?
Eat, Drink, and Be Merry?
Yes.
Eat, Drink, and Be Merry, a glimpse into a life well lived. I did my TED Talk on Mary, my mother-in-law, of the 3 lessons I learned from her. And I met her when I was a kid. So, she has a huge impact on me. And I wrote the book because it's the rest of the story. My TEDx is the conclusion of the book. So the book is the rest of the story, all the little quirky things that I thought were so silly. And now I live like it every day, and people think I'm quirky, but I'm really just enjoying my life. And it's basically a blueprint for living your best life. And I just made it into an audiobook, so it's my voice narrating, which was so exciting. It's a new experience to do that. Because it's like, did I write that? I don't remember saying it that way. But, you're like, I wrote it, so I have to say it. It was a lot of fun. Eat, Drink, and Be Merry. It's a hard story for me because, spoiler alert, my mother-in-law had cancer. She had leukemia. And so it was me watching her get a death sentence and then watching her not change. Most people, when they get a death sentence, have to do, I'm going to do this. I'm going to bucket list that. She didn't need to. She was living her fullest life already. So when she got her diagnosis, she was still the same Mary. And I went, if anything like that ever happened to me, I want to be that way. I want everyone to know that I love them. I want to leave the world doing, well, okay, I lived my best life. I'm not missing anything, that kind of thing. And that's how she lived. That's what the story's about. It's just a fun stories.
You live without regrets.
Every day.
Yeah. Something funny that you just said, it's a little different, but sometimes I read books and I put them down, something interesting. Maybe a year later I come back to the book and I see something new in the book. And I'm asking, who wrote this stuff? It was not here last time I read this book. Somebody took it down and wrote it. So
but that's it. Funny. Your brain picks up on what it needs to at a certain time and whenever you need it.
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, and that's why you can hear the same message. Oh, for those of you who are speakers who say, I want to be a speaker, but people are already doing that. Oh, there's so many other people doing that. Like I said, someone's waiting to only hear your voice. You've seen a lot of these leadership, Tony Robbins and, John Maxwell and Les Brown. They all speak about the same kind of stuff. But not everybody listens to all of them. They listen to one of them. And it's because that voice speaks to them. You are that voice for somebody. Be that voice. And
sometimes we repeat the same thing. It's not because, we're talking to the same people. New people coming to scene all the time.
Yes.
It's a moving parade. You get new people all the time. People that were not ready years ago to listen to your message. Now they are.
Yes.
So now they can hear it.
Well, and I do Facebook Lives a lot. I do a lot of Facebook Lives, and I do a lot of mini trainings on it. And I've had someone say, I've been listening to you for like a year and a half. And I said, really? They do, yeah. But when you talked about, embracing your toddler mindset, that really clicked. And I'm thinking, I always talk about your toddler mindset. I always talk about it. But they weren't ready for it at that time. They needed to hear it at that day, on that time, in that moment in their life. Nothing's really repetitive when it's not about you. It's about whoever is out there who needs to hear you at the time.
Yeah, it's like they say that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Exactly.
That's the way it is. Any last
next book? Any last words?
Any last words? Any last tips? Any last suggestions?
I have a great suggestion. Follow me on YouTube. It's my name, youtube.com, Michelle Mras, because I do a lot of inspiration there. And if you don't have Facebook or do that kind of thing, I put all my videos onto my YouTube page. It's a good way to track me.
And please, can you repeat your website again and the bootcamp website also?
Okay, my website is www.michellemras.com. That's MICHELLE, Mr.as.com. My YouTube page is the same, youtube.com/Michelle Mras, Michelle, MICHELLE, MRAS. And then the boot camp is breakthroughspeakerbootcamp.com.
Thank you, Michelle, for being here today. That's really good advice. I learned a lot. I went to you guys' boot camp, and I'm still learning a lot from you guys, you and Gary. So thank you for taking the time. I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you're feeling better. I'm glad you're recovering from your surgery. Great to see you. And to my listeners, all her links are going to be just below this recording. Michelle, again, thank you. Anything else you want to leave our listeners with?
Be the best version of you and always work. Never give up on education. Always learn.
That's right. Keep educating, keep improving, keep looking ahead. Mm-hmm. Keep going to that next level.
Or as I like to say, you're not dead yet. Keep going.
Thank you, everybody. Until next time, this is JC Soto with Online Media 360. Bye now.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.